Real Sharks. Welcome to the Real Sharks podcast. Thank you for joining us on our new set, literally 20,000 leagues under the sea. We hope you enjoy our sharks, and we just hope you enjoy the new show. Special shout out to George, aka Spike Green, from the land down under, Cinema Recall, Sherlock Lester Video, and to our big, huge number one fan, Jimmy Evans, of course, as always. Thank you for joining us, Jimmy. So let's get started with today's show. And it's going to be a pretty heavy show, and I feel like we're going to have a lot to say about these articles. We're going to try to continue on with our Arnold Schwarzenegger movie special that we'll be putting out later on. And by the way, too, we will be dropping more basically clips of the show as the months go on. But obviously, too, I want to address the elephant in the room, and not just that the set looks fucking cool, because it really does.
Yeah.
The fact that we are missing one of our key members. Long story short, we couldn't agree on the direction of the show, so he is no longer with us, and we wish him the best of luck. So that is what it is, and
So all the best to Joe Rogan.
Right.
right,
Podcast goes well,
right, all the best, Joe.
I mean, he will be missed, but I think he's got some other stuff on his
Right.
plate.
Yeah, I hope it works out.
Yeah,
it works
me
out.
too.
He's great.
Yeah, but needless to say, we won't miss that guy. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get started with this movie news. Here's one. So this article recently came out of Screen Rant. So William Shatner is basically awed by his trip to space.
He's he launched today, I think.
Mm-hmm. Successfully, correct?
Yeah, successful. Yep, I think he went up and back down, or is he? I don't know if he's still in space yet. I think it was just an up and down kind of deal.
How do you feel about that, Luke? That Captain Kirk, went to space.
I think that's cool. I think, William Shatner. I suspect, obviously, it was probably a big. I don't know how big nerds the NASA fans are, but I'm assuming if they're into NASA, that would be some type of.
I must be one of those people that aren't excited because I'm one of those people that are like, this is just a step forward to going towards Elysium. It really is.
Yeah.
Yes, because the rich people are just going to start building their own fucking artificial moon with their goddamn immortality coffins that are just going to make them live forever while we stay down here on Earth and just basically rot with the rest of, as they like to say, the peasants, the plebs.
No, that's true.
Is that what you think, Rob? You think with all these rich people, because
Yes,
Jeff Bezos of Amazon also going back to space. You think they're up there looking like Mars is looking pretty good? I know it's really far, but
no, I just think they're thinking Earth is not fun anymore because we can't do what we want anymore, and it's just like. I just really have this feeling like what this is what the future are. There was already an article recently describing how Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, they're looking for the key to immortality. They're actually looking to try and live forever. And what's that going to do when these guys basically say, yeah, we are so rich, we have the right to live forever? And you know what? I used to think back in the day, for a while, I used to always make this joke, especially about Hunger Games. I was like, if we ever live in a society where Hunger Games is real, we deserve to be that because there's so many of us compared to them. We would just over fucking run them. It's just fucking stupid to think that would happen. But no, I actually think that's perfectly logical now. With the way things are, I think if they were like, yeah, we're gonna build an artificial moon, yeah, we're gonna live forever, people would be like, that's all right. I love Amazon.
Yeah.
That's why I go out of my way.
I bought a Emperor Palpatine robe for Halloween for $20 today. I'm getting it tomorrow. That's a level of convenience that I don't know. Maybe it is worth the sacrifice of some warehouse workers' physical and mental well-being. I don't know. Sometimes I'm conflicted because on one hand, the workers deserve better rights. On the other hand, I'm getting a Palpatine costume and tomorrow for $20. So who is to say who is really the correct one? Maybe the answer lies somewhere in the middle.
I know.
Right.
I was gonna say, as you're shopping online right now, you're like,
Yeah.
I'm actually shopping
Yeah.
something right as we're talking. I
Or
got a
there could be
lightsaber to
just a
go with it
mega
right now.
plan. This is probably just a mega plan, bro. I think he's out there already building his next warehouse or whatever he calls it, likes to call it fulfillment centers. And that's going to be the next plan. He's like, listen, we've solved the 1 day shipping. Now you could just order things straight from Mars. You want some Mars rocks? You'll get them from Mars.
Blast into your house like Invader Sim style. Just boom! Just this giant crane just gets outside your
Just
house.
a missile. Just a missile. You want that robe that it just comes right to your room, blasts through your wall.
Like some drone, like you're some kind of poor, Middle Eastern fucker, and all of a sudden a drone's gonna get right in your fucking house. That's how the equivalent's gonna be.
There was well, this is kind of related to another article I read. So there's a private company that is actually, their plan is not to use rockets, but they are planning to use like giant helium, like not helium balloons, but giant balloons to launch into space to do like commercial consumer space travel. Now you won't break the atmosphere. You'll get, I think, to the stratosphere because that's as much as the technology and safety allows. But yeah, they're now we're getting to that point where average people might be able to go into that level of space. I forget the name of the company. Just it's not necessarily huge, not a big deal. Certainly, who gives a shit? Because I think as of right now, the ticket price is like $5,000. Which is a lot of money, but you could huff it.
That sounds like a lot of Roswell talk to me. That's all that sounds like. That's going to lead to there's a ton of balloons falling down, and people are like, "Oh my god, it's a goddamn crashed UFO."
Oh, that would be. I mean, yeah, that's another thing. I'm like, that thing's gonna fucking break. The first one, that's gonna be fucking insane.
So here's an article that blew my mind. This came out of MovieWeb. So, according to scientists, the Blair Witch Project tops the list of scariest movies according to a new study. And at first, I was like, maybe it's like a few. No, there was basically after analyzing over 50,000 reviews on IMDb for the top 25 highest-grossing horror movies worldwide, and then tallying up the numbers, and then the word symptomness with scary and terrifying. They basically came out that the highest scare score was the Blair Witch Project. I'm very disappointed.
Yeah, that's also like a really shoddy way to gauge. You just look up the word, how many times the word scary appears. I would have thought maybe they would have been like, what are what are things in the film that are designed to trigger fear? What are that do that more often? Or I don't know. That maybe something a little bit more robust than Google searching fear, hitting Control F fear on the IMDb page and seeing what happens.
Or what if the word was not scary, and then they just plugged in scary.
Where do you count for irony? How many? I mean, by this metric, is Boss Baby ranking high up there when people talk about terrifying, or or I'm trying to think of something that. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see. I feel like Blair Witch is one of those movies that like even non-horror film people are familiar with.
Right.
And people kind of like latch onto. So, yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
It just kind of go. We're not gonna get into it, and because of YouTube, we lost our, Cannibal Holocaust documentary that we did, and we're gonna get that back. But honestly, though, it's because of all the atrocities of animal cruelty that Cannibal Holocaust committed in their movie that it wasn't a bigger film than Blair Witch Project, as we've discussed. So Blair Witch Project, of course, is that like universal, because it was, as we were talking about, Luke, almost the first found footage film where everyone was like, "Oh my god, this is freaking real!" So of course it had a huge impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say if we were to do that, that maybe is the more. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of what I would think the scariest film is, and I think that's always really subjective because what are you talking about? Like, what is
I think it's Jaws.
Are you talking about the ones that have the best jump scares? I would say David Lynch's Mulholland Drive has like the scariest jump scare of all time, and that's not even a horror movie.
I'm
No.
throwing Jaws in there right now. Jaws is the one I say is the scariest film of all time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we've said that before, where whether or not Jaws on our Jaws special, by the way, we've talked about this, where Jaws is bordering horror. You know what I mean? As far as like,
But it
or a thriller.
scared
Which one is
people
it?
from going in pools. You know, it scares people from being.
To this like very
Yeah.
day, there's people that have phobias because of Jaws.
Kids are almost born knowing that film.
Yeah, they know about it. I think it's more realistic, and I think just coming off of the precedence of like films that are the scariest are unintentional. You know what I mean?
Right.
Those are the ones that are the most scary because you think, like you said, Jaws and stuff like that. If you're looking at like, I don't know, The Ring, it came out around that time, right? Remember that was kind of like a craze, and people were like, "Oh my God, The Ring's pretty scary." Paranormal Activity. Those ones, you know what you're going to expect. With Jaws, you just knew, okay, it's going to be a shark. You didn't know it's going to be so viscerally like, oh my God, like that could just happen to me. Go into the ocean, you know what I mean?
And not to mention, Steve, when we were talking about, sorry to cut you off, we were doing, when we were doing our Drift review, we talked about how every time now when we watch a movie and they do that undershot of someone swimming, we already think in a movie that has water, was there a fucking shark? And that's because of Jaws. It's because of Jaws.
So every time there's an undercut of somebody in the water and you see a bunch of legs and they cut back to people having fun, you're just like, total Jaws ripoff every time. And it's just the effectiveness of that scary aspect I'm playing on people's fears.
But, you know, to be fair to Luke, let's go ahead and go around the table here and let's name our scariest films that we think is the scariest film to ourselves. And I will be perfectly honest and name the film that scares me every goddamn time. So many people out there are probably like, oh my God, you're such a girl. But it really does fucking scare the shit out of me. And that's When Darkness Falls.
Darkness Falls, okay.
When Darkness Falls, for some reason, always will scare the shit out of me. I don't know why. For those of you who don't know, it's about the tooth fairy, and you can't go in the dark because this fucking tooth fairy thing, bitch, fucking snatches your ass up and apparently collects your teeth and kills you. And you know, I don't know. But Steve, what's the film that gets you every time?
I think mine's more mainstream. I think it probably is going to have to go with the tried and true of Exorcist, the first.
Are you serious?
I'm dead.
The Exorcist scares you?
Dude, it's scary. Yeah, man. I think it either borders between. There's a tie. I'm going to say this. I know this is controversial, but it's a tie between John Carpenter's The Thing or The Exorcist.
Okay,
on a good day. Because The Thing, dude, is like I can watch it now, like by myself in the dark, and I'm like, I'm gonna turn on this light right quite quick because I know what's coming, but I'm still kind of like, I need to like prepare myself for that.
Luke, how about you?
I was also gonna say Exorcist, and a lot of that has to do with, I would say my religious upbringing because it's like, okay, that might happen. In my head, I'm just like,
right.
That could happen
any day now to you, just because you're upbringing is gonna start fucking spinning your head.
That's also what got me about. Well, weirdly enough, the Mothman Prophecies.
Well, that is a scary film.
That movie, the Richard Gere one, and it's just because like I guess some of it has to do with the situation I was in which my friend was just like, this actually happened.
Right.
So I'm watching the whole movie just like, what?
Yeah, I agree.
Not realizing that, most of the events were fictionalized, but like, there was in fact a bridge. That part was real, but I'm watching the whole thing just so I'm like, what the fuck? Did this really like
right.
that, like the Blair Witch feeling. You're just watching it like, no way, this couldn't have happened. It did happen. Fuck.
Right. All right. So here's an interesting article I found in India Today. Well, it wasn't just in India Today, but it was actually where I could get the article. So, Russian film crew blasts off to shoot world's first movie in space. So the 12-day Russian mission follows the launch of the first all-civilian crew aboard a rocket and capsule developed by SpaceX, which was funded by businessman Elon Musk. Basically, they're shooting a movie called Challenge, and this movie is going to be about a procedure about a doctor that has to arrive on the space station to help one of the astronauts.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's it's done by the doctor is portrayed by actress Yuli Persild, who was asked to travel to the space station to save a cosmonaut's life. So, and the director is also going to be Klim Shippenko. So
Clem?
sorry. Yeah. So, and also they said they're looking forward to. Already said he was looking forward to a Mars-based sequel. So the Soviets have not just beat us. I call them Soviets. Not only did they beat us to the moon, they beat us by putting the first fucking film crew in space to shoot the first movie in space too.
Why is that not the name of the film? Like, we just did it to you guys again.
Yeah,
seriously, two times.
You just got F'd in the A, right?
That should be the beginning scene.
Really? I mean,
it's interesting. Yeah, like I'm curious how long this was in the works, and whether the whole putting Shatner on in space was also part of it. Because it's just like, I wonder.
Right.
True.
Again, this makes me, wonder again. We're starting to see more and more billionaires going up. Now we're seeing film crews go up. Hey, when are we going to be able to go up, guys? Hey, Elon Musk, come on. Real Sharks crew needs to go up. Let us be the first podcast to broadcast in space.
Elon Musk, let us come in here.
Yeah, we don't put misinformation out on this podcast.
Right. Of course not. 100% facts. Real Sharks going to be the first podcast on the moon.
We're already 20,000 leagues under the sea. Okay. So here's one that's going to be controversial, and I wanted to bring this up because I want to hear your guys' opinion on it. So, and we're not gonna go too in depth on this article per se, but more on the event that has transpired, and that was Ted Sarandos doubles down on Dave Chappelle's defense. Content doesn't directly translate to real world harm. So, as anyone knows, what Dave Chappelle said, he recently made some jokes about trans community that everyone was not very happy about. I am very, we consider ourselves comedians on this show. We've been accused of being insensitive, everything under the sun from a podcast could take. Racist, all kinds of stuff.
We've been called racist? That's fun.
Yeah. We've been called racist by YouTube. Thanks, YouTube. Yeah, for hate speech. Right. Thanks, YouTube.
And yet they still have like actual dudes associated with neo-Nazis on YouTube still.
But when we make fun of Nazis, that's going too fucking
far. That's too far.
Now you're racist. Brought it up. You are the racist. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah. Now you're.
Right. So basically, there's going to be a huge walkout protest scheduled of Dave Chappelle's special, The Closer. Again, I hate to say this, guys, and I'm not trying to offend anybody out there who listens to the show. You should know who we are by now. If you don't, then I'm sorry. But I don't think Dave Chappelle should be in trouble for this because I don't believe Dave Chappelle truly has those feelings. It's just the name of comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Chappelle has made jokes where he's been like, trust me, I've met some trans women that are so hot I'd fuck them, or I did fuck them. Like, he's said things like that. He's put himself in uncomfortable scenarios in his jokes. And I just think it's kind of, I think we hear this a lot, especially from, the right side of the aisle, about, the thought police and trying to, the censor police, but it comes from both, actually. And this is one of those times I think people are being a little bit too sensitive, personally, because he's a fucking comedian. He's there to make jokes. We're there to have fun. I think that's so lame that people nowadays have to say, these jokes are intended not to hurt your feelings. They're intended to have fun. It's like, then what the hell are you doing at a comedy show? We say the same thing about movies. It's like, if you can't go to a movie and take off your political change, then what the fuck are you doing at the theater?
Yeah,
if you can't take your cap off for just a minute. But that's
Did you see this one, Rob? Did you see this this special?
I haven't seen it yet. But I do know for a fact, and this is why I am a fan of Dave Chappelle, is that he makes fun of everybody. I've never heard one single group of people he has never ripped on. Ever.
He's like Don Rickles, man. He's made fun of everybody. I've seen this special now twice, and this is his last special that he announces on this special. He says, like, this is the last one for a while. Now, he's done a number of Netflix specials, I think around like maybe 4 or 5 of them. I don't know if this is accurately to say, but I feel confident to say I think in every single one of those specials, he's made somewhat an allure to making jokes about everything from the Epstein case to Donald Trump to Weinstein to transphobia. Trans people, I should say, not transphobia. Well, transphobia in this last one. So this last one that he did, the closer, saw it twice. It was more so him pouring his heart out rather than a stand-up comedy act. Like he did like one opening bit, and then like he goes into addressing the trans community and him having a best friend that committed suicide who was a trans comedian, and it was due to the fact that he was being, or she, I should say, was being bashed by the LGBTQ community. So it's kind of weird, right? Where I don't want to delve too much into it, but Dave Chappelle is clearly in his special stating he is a ally and feminist. He says it multiple times.
Right.
There's really nothing in it that's harmful other than jokes being made. And like you said, Rob, it's Dave Chappelle. The gloves are off. He had a show called Chappelle Show where he attacked literally everyone. Does anybody remember the sketch of the race war where they had the race draft?
Right. Like, I was just gonna say that one. When he's like, you can have Tiger Woods. White people can have Tiger Woods.
Right. Like, does anybody remember that?
Black people got Tiger Woods, and he's like, goodbye. He's like, hello, chicken collard greens.
Yeah. And then the black people got Eminem. They're like, oh, we want to trade for Eminem or something like that. So that it's happened, right? And it was funny. I know it's at the time of 2004 or 5, but where I'm getting at is he's a comedian, like you said, Rob. There's you can choose whether to watch the man or not watch the man. There's no requirement from Netflix to watch him. If you're offended for some reason, you don't have to watch him. But I feel like it's reputable content, and yeah, I agree, man. Like, keep his Netflix on special on Netflix.
What do you think, Luke?
Well, as I see it, first, the important thing to remember about Chappelle Show is that Chappelle himself specifically stopped the show because he thought he was perpetuating bad stereotypes. Like, he specifically thought his comedy at that moment was harmful, and he stopped. So we know that Chappelle is capable of like understanding how rhetoric can affect people. Now, in the case of the trans thing, I haven't seen it either. I've seen the previous two, and in both cases, he has addressed. And now, I don't know if he is transphobic. I don't know him personally, so I can't make that judgment. I will also say it is very rarely a cis person's place, if ever, to decide what is transphobic. That is the position of of people who are trans. They get to decide what is transphobic. And if and of course, I've seen trans comedians that are okay with it, and I've seen trans comedians that are not okay with it. Ultimately, that is their decision, though, and it's also ultimately their decision to not just say that they don't like it. It's also within their right to decide that, like, I'm working for a company that is allowing transphobic content, so I need to make a statement. So I also think they have that right as well. And again, you're also right that nobody has to watch it, but certainly that was a case a while back in the other specials when Chappelle was making these statements. And I think, could be me, but he could be, again, addressing this statement. To me, it seems less like Chappelle is, less is the issue of any particular thing about transphobic content, and more about Chappelle, like, once again, taking issue with people taking issue with his content.
Right.
And again, insist, and it goes back to what a lot of comedians are doing right now, is the insistence on cancel culture, when it's really yet to mean loss of revenue for anybody. I mean, obviously Louis C.K., but that was like he was committing like crimes and shit.
Who Dave Chappelle has defended, by the way.
Of course. Well, yeah,
Right.
the comedians will always defend each other because
Right.
they circle the wagon.
Yeah, it's a society.
In this case, though, it just seems again that like Chappelle himself seemed to can't let go of being criticized in this case. And I would have thought he had a little bit more nuance to understand that, but it seems he is just once again upset that he's being criticized. That's how it comes out to me. I could be wrong.
He's more so like
well,
the
the reason I disagree is because I think in this world, in the post-Trump era, one thing I'm fucking sick of is hearing everyone all of a sudden act like they're all upset about things that you haven't seen it before. It's like the goddamn president was a fucking bozo that committed so many he was a laughingstock basically, and we've seen people say things on camera now and do things in the streets that we never thought we'd see. And so I think there's plenty of things to criticize politically and economically and even culturally in some instances, but to sit there and like pick on a comedian, to me it's just like, get the fuck out of here, man. It's a fucking comedian. It's a guy that's meant to make you laugh. If like Steve was saying, if you don't like it, then just don't fucking watch it, man. Don't go watch it. You know who Dave Chappelle is, and and this is just totally me. And I'm sorry if people find it offensive. I believe everyone should be made fun of. I believe everyone should be made fun of at least 5 times a day. It builds character.
Or it depends on who you are. I know there's like that's a comedian. You see, you got like a comedian's brain where they kind of think like, everything. There's nothing that's not off limits.
That's what I'm saying.
So to speak. There's always going to be dark humor. There's always going to be raunchy humor. There's always going to be clean humor. Just for his body of work, I'm specifically trying to keep it like on his Netflix specials that he has done from his first to now. Mm-hmm. He has made some type of trans community joke, right?
I get it. But he's also made a poor black joke, poor white people joke,
a
racist joke. He's made all kinds of jokes, and I'm just simply sitting there saying it's like, it reminds me, and Luke, tell me if you recall this, when Jimmy Kimmel got in trouble for basically telling a guy that he slobs over Trump's knob too much, and the gay community came out and said Jimmy Kimmel hates gays, and it's like, Jimmy Kimmel has been an advocate for the gay community for a long time. Jimmy Kimmel has been on your side forever, and because he made a joke like that, all of a sudden the gloves are off for that guy, but all of a sudden the gloves aren't off for the other guy. I just feel like people jump on a comedian more than they will jump on a politician for what they say and what they do. And I think there's plenty of other things to jump on people for than making a simple joke. That's me.
Well, true. I mean, again, we're talking about like a broad, and we can't necessarily say the thing about like everybody who's criticizing everybody. Because maybe the people that criticized Jimmy Fallon also criticized Trump. I'm assuming they did. That'd be weird if they didn't, or whoever was slobbing on Trump's knob. I don't even remember that.
But the point I'm saying is that somebody who is necessarily on that side, who never does harm to that community, all of a sudden that community can become visceral towards that person.
Mm-hmm.
And like, while I think cancel culture is stupid myself, and we've addressed it here on the show.
Yeah.
I just think sometimes going after comedians is where it's not over the line, but I just think you're just trying to throw anything at the wall at that point. It's like I can go to a comedy show, down the street and probably be offended by something they say, but you don't see me going up in arms. If I don't like it, I don't laugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or you don't return. And I get, but I get where what Luke is also saying, like you can't really tell somebody not to get offended.
I totally agree. I get that.
That is their choice, and the employees, which there's supposed to be a stage walkout for the trans people that work for Netflix to walk out. That's why the CEO doubled down on his comments supporting Dave Chappelle. And this is my last remark on it is, there's no malice from Chappelle.
That's
I
what I'm
think
trying to get to.
he's
He's
a
not doing it
comedian, so he's
maliciously.
yeah, and I think he's doing this out of an endearing part of his heart. To literally, the whole special was based off of that one. It was like one giant joke, right? With some realism in it. It was like a hurtful truth with jokes surrounding the hurtful truth to kind of make sure that he's coming from a good point. But again, I understand people are going to be offended by that. They have every right to feel offended, but I also feel like it's their right to turn the special off. And Netflix has that thing to thumbs down it if you want it. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's always that thing where you don't have to call for people's careers or call for Netflix to take off the Netflix. You know what? This reminds me of, and people have said this before. We've mentioned this. You and I have, Rob. When Netflix had that movie called Cuties that depicted young girls sexualized, and people wanted that taken down because of just based off of the trailer. They didn't watch it,
but how
see
many
it. They just saw that.
films with little girls have there been? Quite a few.
Quite a few, and
there
that
was no
movie
outrage
wasn't
there.
even close. Yeah, and the movie was depicting how those films should be taken down, and so I don't know. I feel like there's going to be hurt and laughter and everything, and this is the case. But I don't know. I feel like there's a cleaner way to handle all of this.
I get what you mean. I totally get what both your guys are saying. I totally do. Just but let's go ahead and move on. That was a good topic, though. Good conversation. Let us know what you guys all think down there in the comments below on this subject. So let us know. So let's go ahead and move out of the movie news and into some reviews, because I caught a gem, gentlemen. I've been catching them lately. I actually enjoyed this film quite a bit. Recently, I watched, it was Blood Red Sky, also known as Transatlantic 473. This is a Netflix movie. Came out this year in July. It is basically, it's a British-German action horror film directed by Peter Thorwarth. Co-wrote the screenplay by Stefan Holtz. The film stars Roland Moller, Pierre Bonmister. Those are the only names I'm going to try and pronounce, so sorry if I don't go any farther. But the premise of this film, and Real Sharks is always the spoilers, ladies and gentlemen, so we'll give you that right now. Okay, you've been warned. Anyway, so the whole premise of this film is basically about a mother taking her son to America. But it's really interesting. So basically, during this flight, it's hijacked by these terrorists who are trying to enact a plan. However, none of that fucking matters because they just start killing people, and there's a psychopath even on this film, even in this plane, that's just killing people randomly because this chick, who they show in the film, has a history with vampires. And by that, I mean, it's not your typical, and I say this, my audience, because I found it very good. It is not your typical vampire film. Vampire films usually swing one of two ways. Either we get the Twilight, I'm blinging outside and I love you forever because I can only connect with you emotionally because I can't physically because I'm dead. Or you get the, uh, the, I guess you would say, gentlemanish, Interview with the Vampire. Or sometimes you get the Blade 2 vampires where they're basically like zombies. That was this one, but it more like Nosferatu status. So it actually, to me, did a real good job of this. The story, though, is about this woman who was bitten by a vampire while she basically had her young child. So she is able to essentially not control this affliction, but she's found a way to slow it down. And during this flight, um, she basically has to unleash that vampiric monster and kill everyone on the flight. But also, one of the terrorists gets a hold of her blood, injects himself, and then the whole plane is basically running rampant with vampires.
It's crazy.
And they can't let people leave this plane because that was even something in her past that was told by the original guy who had the vampire disease, was like, we can't let it spread. And her little boy knows that too. And spoilers, her little boy in the end enacts a horrific explosion that ultimately has to kill his mother, but everyone else on this plane because the disease gets out of control. But
Okay.
but overall, though, this is one thing I will say about this film. It had a very good fucking story for being such a stupid premise of being on a plane. Like, as I was watching this film, I was like, this story deserves more of, like, it was almost like a let the right one in story. It was very emotional. There was a lot of, like, emotions to it, a lot of history to it behind the character, but you were almost like, I can't really pay attention to that because there's so much action going on right now, and there's so much other shit going on with people on this
Yeah, there was
plane.
a lot going on, bro,
There was a
in this
lot.
film.
But
Yeah.
overall, though, I thought the film was good. I was surprised. And I definitely recommend it out there to my audience. If you're a big fan of, the old school horror vampires like Nosferatu, where they're, you know, basically a corpse, the
The
undead,
look of them, yeah, like how
you'll
they
like it.
look like
Yeah, you'll
Nosferatu.
like
Yeah.
it. Almost like a Air Force One meets Daywalkers.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, when I was watching it, Steve, I was like, "This is how Daywalkers got started."
Right, yeah.
So,
The kid that left went alive, yeah.
what did you think of this film, Steve? Because it sounds like you saw it.
Yeah, I saw this film. It was also surprising to me too because I kind of didn't really like look into it or anything. I was just like,
Right.
oh, okay, I'll watch it. And then I was surprised, like, wait, oh, it's a foreign film, like, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I watched it. I thought it was okay, and then the premise of because at first I'm not gonna lie, like I kind of was doing other things. I looked up and the mom was like looking weird. I'm like, is she a zombie or what is she
Right.
really? And then because they're like all trying to band together against the terrorists that hijacked the plane, but then the woman's like, no, we have to get out of this one room, right? She's like, get out of this room now. And they're like, what's wrong with this lady? And you can, like, when you look at her, because she's wearing like a hood,
Mm-hmm. A wig.
she's starting to like,
contacts.
yeah, a wig, but like everything's in like frame by frame, shot by shot. I don't know if you've noticed this, Rob. Every time they went back to her, a little piece of something is missing.
Right.
A contact out of her eyes out, so it's just like you get the black eye of like it's like what? Her wig is gone, so she's wearing the hood. She's slowly turning. And just when you answer that question, like she's a vampire or whatever, they cut to a scene where she is, I don't know, it's like in her past, like you said, where she's talking to this guy and he's basically saying like, there is no cure. This is a demon disease.
Yeah.
You cannot control this. You're an animal for life. And she's looking at him like, there is nothing I could do. He's like, no, you're kind of fucked. Like,
you
this
can
is
slow it down by morphine, which is what she does in the whole film. She's just taking morphine.
Morphine it up until she ultimately sort of succumbs. And it's so sad because the son obviously is human, and there's like a point where she's protecting him throughout the whole film, but then like there's subliminal things where she's wanting to eat him. Like there's like this one thing, like I said, spoilers at the end where she's fighting the main terrorist who injects himself with it, so it's like a vampire fight. But like during it, she's also trying to like attack the son too. So I'm like, oh my god, like this kid has no defense. The terrorist wants to eat him. His own mom wants to eat him while protecting him. It was crazy. I love that part of it, and I think like there hasn't been a dynamic like this in
no.
I feel like it brung the back in a vampire for me. I was like, yeah, that's what it should be, right? You just have no hope. There's no glimmering. There's no love interest. It was just this mom is like, I got to get my son to America to get him away from me. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And everybody else is in my way. And because she like kills a couple of people, right?
She like totally eats on them.
Dude. And I was just like, whoa, like
she ate a dog. Yeah. That poor dog.
Oh my god!
And then she framed the other dog for that guy's murder, and that terrorist goes down there and blows the dog's head off.
Blow the dog's head off.
Oh man!
So this movie is not playing around. Yeah.
Luke, did you happen to catch this film?
I did not. I didn't even know this thing existed.
It's pretty good.
So yeah, so it's like it's a hijacked plane, but it's also like when does the vampire stuff like when do we find out that this is a vampire movie?
This starts like automatically because you notice something's already wrong with her. before she gets on the plane, because she's like in a hurry. She's wearing glasses, and her son is very concerned all the time. Like, Mom, are you okay? Like, even like it goes so far as to when she starts to actually like eat people. He's like, "You didn't drink blood, did you?" He's like, "No, tell me you didn't drink blood." He's like, there's no going back from that point, and like. It's pretty intense. Like her
How early?
transformation.
Now, did you know it was a vampire movie going into this?
No, I didn't. I actually
No.
thought
You
it was
thought
going
it
to be
was
the kid. I thought the kid was going to be the monster, or they were hiding something. Because recently, I seen watched The Strain, which takes place on a plane as well, but it takes place in the cargo hold. So I was like, maybe something's in the cargo hold type thing. Maybe like maybe Bat Boy's in the cargo hold, and he gets out or some shit. But no, it wasn't like that at all. It was actually very emotional. The kid and the mom, the whole dynamic between the relationship is very sad because the kid doesn't know any better. To him, it's his mom. And what's even sadder, and spoiler my audience because we're going to give it away, is the end of this film when he goes running after her because they have to destroy the plane, and they do find a way to destroy it. And he goes running after her, and he sees her mom, and his mom is actually eating people like uncontrollably. And he looks
drinking blood.
out of all this time too, like he's helped her and all this. He finally sees that her eyes are completely black, and she just starts charging him. And there's no going, but he knows right then that she's gone. Like there's no going, and he hits the button, blows the fuck out of her, because there's no point of like she's gone. Like he knew it then.
Was she eating? Who was she eating, Rob? Was she eating
SWAT team.
the SWAT team, because they go in and they're trying to like neutralize everybody, but there was another. Yeah. I thought she was eating the person that because he finds out there's a guy in the plane. He's like a passenger. He finds out like, oh, you're whatever, you're a vampire, and then she's like, listen, I'm gonna turn. You need to protect my son from me and them, right? Like from everybody. You just need to take him out of here. And he's like, yeah, okay. And I think he dies, right?
No, he lives. He lives. They take him into custody. But yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought she was eating him. I was like, dang, you just bestowed it. Oh, by the way, let me kill you and suck your blood. I was like, dang, dude, this is crazy.
No, Luke, like we were saying, it was an interesting. It was the most dynamic vampire film I've seen since Let the Right One In.
Okay. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I love Let the Right One In.
But like, I won't lie to you.
I was thinking, like, is it like a Dusk Till Dawn situation where you're like watching it, you're like, okay, hijack movie, and then in the middle it's like, by the way, they're vampires. You're like,
no, that would be great. But
that would be solid. If it's like the whole movie, it's just like, oh, this is a hijack. It's a tense drama about a hijack, and then like at the 30-minute, 40-minute mark, I'm like, by the way, this girl's a vampire.
You might like it then, because it's kind of like that a little bit. I mean, something's wrong with her. Yeah. You know something's wrong with her. Mm-hmm. You know that because she said she has leukemia. She says she's sick. You know something's wrong with her. But they don't ever say it's a vampire until like there's a moment in the film where the guy blows her away, and she's like, you're like, oh shit, she's fucking dead. And then all of a sudden she's like, and she wakes up and she has this flashback, and you're like, oh shit, she's a vampire.
Yeah, that was the brilliant part of the film. Yeah, where they all realize like this lady is like, because they were all scared of the terrorists, but when they figured out she was the vampire, they were just like, I kind of want to go side with those guys now because you're like otherworldly. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was an interesting film, so I definitely recommend it to my audience and to Luke out there. Yep. And so we're going to go ahead and get back into our flashback review, and hopefully we're going to be able to do this because it looks like we're running out of time, our audience here on this one. Okay, guys, so I went in here thinking to myself, I've never seen this film. Big fan of Sigourney Weaver. Big fan of, fantasy films. I have seen Snow White and the Huntsman. I believe we have done a review on that film, Steve. I'm sorry if we do so many films nowadays. I don't remember exactly what. If we've talked about it, we've talked about it. If I said it, I said it. So I'm sorry, my audience. But I wanted to basically kind of get a conclusion on this film called Snow White and A Tale of Terror, starring. It was written by Tom Solisi, Deborah Serra, and Jacob Grimm. Starred Sigourney Weaver, Sam Neill, and Gil Bellows. It's basically the dark story of. It's basically Snow White, but I don't. God, Sigourney Weaver's the witch. What'd you say, Steve?
Kind of Snow White.
It's kind of Snow White. Basically, the back of the film describes this is a dark take on the fairy tale that the growing hatred of a noblewoman, secretly a practitioner of the dark arts, for her stepdaughter, and the witch's horrifying attempts to kill her. I would not think it was that at all, because I hate to say this, Steve, this film was very boring. Very,
Yeah.
very boring. Usually we go back and we pay good homage and credit to old films that are, we think maybe got a bad rap. But this one, I hate to say it, has a 6.2 on IMDb. It has a poor rating everywhere else. And I have to say, I have to agree with it. Coming out in 1997, this film definitely didn't age well. And I hate Kristen Stewart, but I have to say, Snow White and the Huntsman has run circles over this film, man. And I'm not just saying that. I'm saying that like with Kristen Stewart in it, with their speech in it, Luke,
Oh goodness.
with her speech and dialogue. Steve, what did you think of this? Did you ever see this film?
Yeah, I saw it. We have reviewed this before, and yeah, it's so slow. It's so slow. I feel like at the time, dude, this was in the late '90s, so they were like practical effects. Look how she looks as the witch. It's like, yeah, but like I'm not scared, and what's going on? Like, you know what I mean? It was like very all over the place.
And I love Sigourney Weaver so much. And, I just don't see her as that fairy tale princess. I always see her as more of an Arnold type action star, maybe just because that's
Yeah.
aliens. But I know she's done these type of roles. But what part really got to me and made me laugh, Steve, is how kind of, like you said, practical effects. One, I hate the costumes. They're so bright. And I know that was the look of the '90s because Man in the Iron Mask is like that. Quills is kind of like that too. I just hate the bright fucking costumes. Like they didn't think people got dirty back then. I just can't fucking stand it
Yeah,
sometimes.
right. They're in the forest, but yet they're sparkling almost. It's like, why are
Right.
you?
But more importantly, I love that part where Sigourney Weaver, spoilers my audience, tries to get her. I don't know if it's her brother. She says the term brother, but he's kind of basically like a henchman. Gustav. By the way, I don't know why, but why is it that every henchman is named like either Gustav, Eugene, Sebastian? Why?
Stop.
When she orders him to cut out her heart, and he gives her the pig heart, it's like bloody. But then later on, you see Sigourney Weaver like rubbing it on herself, and there's no blood whatsoever. You can tell she's like, I ain't rubbing that fucking thing on me unless it's perfectly washed. Because it's like dude, I've never even seen hearts like in like fucking doctor manuals as clean as that fucking heart was. Then when she was rubbing it on herself, and I was like, see, just go all the way. Do it with the blood, man. You're a witch. Come on, let's be
Yeah.
scary. It's called A Tale of Terror by the supposed Grimm brothers, and I'm like, they ain't fucking scary.
Yeah.
Luke, did you ever see this film?
It was.
I've never even heard of it, and that's a shame because I feel that I think now if you were to pitch Snow White with Sigourney Weaver and Sam Neill, people would be fucking stoked. They'd be like, "Fuck, yeah, that shit would be."
Right.
I would be on top of that shit, but I've never even heard of this movie. No.
Right.
So it's a retelling of Snow White, then, basically, correct?
Yeah, but a very, very. I mean, let's just say this: like they tried to make things wicked. They tried to make things almost risque, but it wasn't. Like the
But it was like one
dwarves,
step above Disney. It was like gothic horror Disney
like the
style.
dwarves are, they got sharp teeth, and they're like, oh, like they're not even that scary, and they're just they come off as criminals basically, more than dwarves.
Criminals.
They do. Because they're like, we'll show you what happens to somebody who, what they do to thieves. We're going to chop our hands off. Yeah. It's just like, wow, okay. And then just Sigourney Weaver, she can play evil, but she just doesn't come off as wicked. You know what I mean? I don't know what it was, but this role for her wasn't there. It just I don't, not to say she can't play a princess or a queen or whatever, but there was no mirror on the wall. Like she was talking to herself and stuff, and it just didn't come off as scary. I wasn't scared. I was actually at some points like, okay, so Sigourney Weaver is the witch, right? Because, right? I mean, she's being modest, but she is the witch, right? Like that's how much I was like, God, you got to put forth the stuff a little bit more, Like, is she wicked or is she not?
So it doesn't explicitly say anything about Snow White?
Yeah, her name is Snow White. Like her name
Oh,
is
right.
fucking Snow White.
okay, so it is like a adapt. Is it so? And it's more like it's still like a period.
Yes, unfortunately,
Kind
it
of.
is.
Yeah, like would you say that, Rob? Is it kind of like that?
It's like a
I just feel like
Grimm Brothers piece. That's what it is. It's basically like, I I'm really disappointed. That's all I can say about this one. Usually films, we usually give credence to some of the older films and say, oh, that was a good film. It's aged well. This one, I don't think it's aged very well, guys. But so I'm gonna go ahead and leave this one on a review of 6. No, I'm actually gonna go lower and give it a 5. Uh,
5. Yeah,
yeah, 5 out of 10. So
this
I
is
guess
like
that's.
back of a movie rental place. You know what I mean? If they still existed, this is one of those things. Like, nah, I'm not renting this.
But before we go, I want to hear Luke's favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie with the continuation of our Arnold special. So Luke,
Favorite
you get
Arnold
you
Schwarzenegger.
get your shot right now to tell us your favorite Arnold special and tell
Okay.
us how
Good now, do it.
whichever way you like it, Luke.
Whichever way I like it. Oh God. On the spot here. Oh, you know what? Like kind of a later cut for me. Like obviously, like I think stuff like Terminator that has to be like a free space on the bingo card.
Right.
That's
Yeah, we did Terminator.
yeah. I'll say End of Days.
I was gonna ask you about this film, Luke. Oh my God,
I love
we
that.
got a
It's
thing. We got a thing. Luke, tell our audience about End of Days
so
here.
End of Days is so Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a extremely unspecified private military person. Like they just couldn't they couldn't find a specific job for whatever the fuck Arnold Schwarzenegger does. To be like an army person in New York to make it make sense. So I think it's just like generic private military contractor. And his job, and he's assigned a woman to like bodyguard. Right? He's the bodyguard for her.
At the end
And,
of the century, Satan visits New York in search of a bride. It's up to ex-cop
and
who now runs an elite security outfit to stop
yeah.
him.
So his
Ex-
job, so he is assigned to protect this woman, and unbeknownst to him, and I think unbeknownst to her, she has been she's been pinned by this ancient satanic cult to bear the child of the devil, and yeah, and so like the devil shows up, and it's crazy because it has one of the most insane last 10 minutes of the movie that like doesn't use anything else. There is this. It's a really. I would have to rewatch it, but I thought it was pretty decent back then. Of like a big fuck off demon that Schwarzenegger it confronts, and it's on for like 5 seconds. There's nothing else that is even remotely supernatural, but it's a lot of like Arnie, being Arnie, and it's extreme. It's real campy. It's real campy, but it plays itself so seriously. It's like, and it really is like it has that '90s sense of like New York, where everything's like grim and gritty, raining all the time. Um, yeah, it's a very good Arnold
Directed
movie.
by Peter Hams, written
Yeah.
by Andrew W. Marlowe. Starred Arnold Schwarzenegger, Gabrielle Byrne, and Robin Tunney. Uh, you know, you, you
Kevin
know,
Pollak too.
what gets me about this film, look, is it's almost like Rosemary's Baby, but an action film.
Exactly. It's like what if Arnold
yes,
Schwarzenegger was in Rosemary's Baby?
And I was just
pretty
thinking,
much.
wouldn't that be great if the end of Rosemary Baby, that part where they walk, it was Arnold, and he walks in, right, and then he just like they're like, "It's your child." He like looks at that baby, and then he just looks up, bam, elbows the first guy, and just starts
Just piles
kicking
right the baby.
ass.
Yeah. No, what I
And
love,
Yeah, dude.
I like End of Days because it is a good Arnie movie, but on its own, it's actually not a good movie. But it is watchable because you watch Arnie. And frankly, in terms of performances, like Arnie is going a little bit more, has a little bit more range than his usual repertoire.
Right.
There's a little bit more. There's a little like a hint of vulnerability in this jaded man with nothing left to lose. Yeah, I feel that like maybe so it was so significantly less he's significantly less just like Arnie unflappable. So yeah, highly recommend End of Days. Well, I don't highly recommend End of Days, but if you're
I get you.
Well, Arnold movies, yeah.
Yeah, if you want a good Arnie B side, I would recommend End of Days.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you nailed the hit. You nailed it, man. This film was great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's gonna be all our real sharks. So it has been your host Rob, joined by his two great co-hosts Steve and Lucas Maximus.
Yep.
We thank you for listening. Please listen, like, and subscribe. Hit that like button, retweet, repost, do whatever. Tell your friends. Hey, we'll catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good night.